Welcome. Thank you all for turning up at this fairly late hour on the first full day of reInvent. So appreciate you being here. I know it is late. Hopefully we'll keep you awake for the next hour. So we are from Atos, One Cloud. We host a podcast called Cloudbusting. Has anyone heard of it? Hands up. A few people, I think. We host a podcast to do with cloud. Called it Cloudbusting. We try not to be too technical on it. We try and have a little bit of fun on it. And today what we're going to do is take you through our trends for next year. So every year we like to come up with a series of trends, and we're really talking about the cloud native enterprise. So how can we help look at what do we think is going to be affected in cloud transformation, and what can we help do about it? What are some of the recommendations? I'm very happy to be joined by a couple that I will introduce in a minute. But let's get this show on the road. So, Cloud Trends 2023. Well, first of all, let me introduce who I'm on stage with. So my name's Jez Ward. I head up the advisory function at Atos One Cloud. We've recently been bought by Atos. We were from CloudReach, so those of you may have heard that name before. I'm joined by Darren. Darren is one of our senior advisors. Darren, do you want to just say hello and quick intro?
Yeah, hi, my name's Darren Bowling, and I'm a senior cloud advisor at One Cloud, formerly CloudReach.
Got to get used to saying that now.
Yeah, I do, yeah. It needs to get muscle memory going.
And also thrilled to be joined by Keisha Garcia. Keisha is with BP. Keisha, do you want to just say a little bit about yourself, and in case no one's heard of BP, just who BP might be?
Sure. Keisha Garcia. I am the VP for Digital Foundations. You're probably wondering, what does that mean? Really, it's around the enterprise technology and the delivery of all of our enterprise products throughout all of BP. I'm hoping that everyone knows who and what BP, or what we do in BP. We are in the middle of a large transition right now that I know a lot of companies are. I've been at BP for 16, going on 17 years, and have, this is going to be my third time being a part of this podcast and being on the stage with you guys. I really enjoy it. We've been on our cloud journey for quite some time, since 2016. Across all of our commodities within all of our particular areas of business, about 90% on the cloud at the moment, and really starting to leverage a lot of the cloud native technologies and innovation, and continuing to do that. So I'm really excited to be here, really excited to be a part of this again and get a chance to talk about some of the trends and what we're doing at BP.
Oh, great to have you on the show, and looking forward to not only hearing your thoughts, but also what BP have doing around some of the trends that we're going to be chatting about. So, Darren, why don't we just start a little bit, before we get into the individual trends, just kind of setting the foundations for cloud transformation and sort of where we are.
Setting the foundations, yeah. So, so this is a great quote that we were recently in the Magic Quadrant. And with this quote, we talk about the fact that it's not just the technology, but it's the people and process as well at the same time, and understanding that those skills and developing those skills and all those people need to happen and be adapted as you transform and adopt cloud services.
Gartner very much said, organizations, enterprises should become cloud native, and to do that, you're going to need some help. There's a number of companies that can help. I would recommend us. So what do we talk about this hype cycle, life cycle?
A little plug there.
Let's chat a little bit about this kind of, the hype of cloud and cloud adoption and the trough of disillusionment sometimes.
Yeah. So just to context this a little bit, so there's always a reason to act, and that's normally because of hardware, or software, or an exit of a data center or something that causes that trigger. And then you hit this peak of inflated expectation. We're going to be this cool digital business, we're going to be Uber, it's going to be amazing. And then when you start to land in the cloud, and hopefully Keisha will back this up, you start to realize that although you don't have that digital quotient, you don't have what you need to adopt a new way of working, and then you hit a trough of disillusionment. Actually, there's bigger changes afoot that need to occur that aren't the tech changes. And then you go on this slope of enlightenment, and then you start that journey. Does any of that ring true for you, Keisha?
I so want to just say no, just to make you sweat a little bit, but it all actually rings true, and I've talked about it over the course of time here, but it's so true. We can have all of the technology in the world, but if we don't have people with an agile mindset or actually understanding what agility is and agile methodologies and the frameworks within are, how to leverage the technology, as well as also just from a digital perspective, how to build upon that. And then there's just so many different things. And then, of course, if you don't have your business partners and everyone within the organization, which I think everyone has a part to play, all aligned and reminding them of the strategy and where you're going, and also then starting to evolve and build off of the things that you start to do foundationally, then of course those things then start to make people, what did we come here for? Are we really getting what we need to get?
Yep.
And a lot of the things that you're starting to see, the reality of cloud start to really happen. So yes, that is absolutely true. Been there. Everyone's in a different place in the journey and the learning curve as well, which also contributes to that, which absolutely has nothing to do with building of the actual platform itself.
Yeah.
I'm more looking for a mountain of enlightenment and slope. Let's see what we get to. But that is typical, right? And it's typical of any project, any change, anywhere. I remember having this similar discussion when I moved away from GroupWise to Google Mail, and it was like, well, what? Everyone's going to go Google. And the slope of enlightenment came very quickly with that. So we are going to talk about 6 trends. There's a little sneak preview of them there. Cloud native enterprise, cloud enabled climate change, talent crisis, I guess we've heard that a lot being talked about, connected worlds, evolution of the CIO, so the CIO job is changing, and also what about the FQ? So we will get to that later. But before we do, on our show, so we do have a show, Cloudbusting, I may have mentioned it, podcast. Feel free to subscribe, download, give it 5 stars. We tend to have a thing called the Cloudy Cliffhanger, which is a little question that I like to ask. But I thought, as we've got a live audience, we'll involve everybody in here. So if you're able to, could you all please stand up? Come on. You don't have to stand up for long.
Not only do they have to come
I know it's the end of the day, but
you want
just
them
stand
to be
up
active.
now. So a little cliffhanger question for you. So the first reInvent was 2012, okay? I'm going to give you a clue. To come to reInvent this year cost $1,799. Yeah? I'm going to give you an A or a B answer. So the A answer is, if you think it costs $599 to attend the first reInvent, all right, that's option A. Option B is $1,099. So we're going to go to the audience first. If you think it was option A, $599, please sit down. Okay, so the rest of you are thinking it's $1,099. You can all sit down. About half, thank you. Darren, let's go to you. How much did the first reInvent cost?
I think I know the answer.
Okay.
I think it's $999.
That was neither of the A or B I gave you.
If you listen,
let's just say you don't know the answer.
I don't know that. If you listen to the pod, I am 0 for 3 so far.
So whatever answer you go with, I'm not going
I'm
with
getting a
that.
penalty point for that. Sorry, $599.
$599.
Yeah, $599.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
I have to go with something different because you've been wrong the other time.
Every
so
time.
I'm going to go with $1,099.
Okay. Well, the correct answer is you're going to have to wait. It's the cliffhanger. So let's get on to our trends. Cloud trend number 1, we're talking about the cloud native enterprise. So let's just define what we mean by this. Dan?
Yep, yeah, so I think it's really easy to think cloud native and just think tech. But actually, when you look at what's going on with cloud native and cloud native enterprises as a concept, it's no longer the big eating the small, it's the fast eating the slow. So those who can move really quickly and adopt those things really quickly are actually impacting and taking over the organizations that aren't changing, adapting and being agile. And people and processes are really, really important. And I think we used to, years ago, build for sustainability. So we used to rack equipment, stack equipment, trust that will be there for 5 years or 8 years or whatever it may be. We would release, monthly or whatever, but cloud's come along and exploded that and changed that. So now we're able to build in a modular manner and deliver in a modular manner, but actually adapting to that modulation is really hard. Keisha, your experience of that, we used to build in that way, and that's how our enterprise IT was, and now we're moving to this cloud enterprise, and we have to think about the tech's changed, so now the people and the processes have to change. What's your experience around that?
Yeah, so when we started out on our journey and trying to move at pace and fast to the cloud, we really were looking at not necessarily like for like, because we went away from that quite quickly, but a lot of the things that we were doing were more so setting up IaaS workloads, not really leveraging any cloud native technology, because it was just about let's move quickly, and then of course building for that sustainability piece and how do we get people there and fixed costs that we were trying to avoid and eliminate. So therefore now we now move to more the cloud native strategy involves just a modern approach of how we leverage the software development, including microservices, containers, declarative APIs, service meshes. All of those things are now what we are moving towards and what we've been moving towards for the last couple of years. And we'll continue to do that, and just cloud native adaptation helps improve the operational efficiencies and then also helps to reduce costs, so it goes into that optimizational piece. So now, having firmly established our cloud platforms and exited I want to say 6 of our 8 mega data centers already with our cloud first approach. But again, the IaaS workloads that we had created, now we're coming back around and looking at the modernization of our estate with the product-led approach and using the established capabilities that we had, such as CaaS, Container as a Service. We are well positioned to enter the next phase of our digitalization journey. So 2023 and beyond will be really focused on getting everything onto the containers that we can and that makes sense, and really leveraging and really looking at some of the technologies and continuing to work with AWS and other partners to then determine what are the additional things that we can continue to leverage on. So that's where we're going on the BP end of things.
And that's also changing your people and process, right? Puts huge
Absolutely.
Demand on that change. How have your teams found that? That culture change or need of a technical change, has that been a challenge as well?
It's been a huge challenge of just trying to build the right capabilities to continue to further leverage those capabilities, and even with COTS applications that we have, the licensing and just all of the things that you can think of that come with that. How do we continue to really modernize our products and continue to build on them? And again, leverage the native technology that's there, but the skill set of the people, developing and bringing them along for the journey, as well as the partners that we choose to partner with, whether that be Atos and others. How do we do that? How do we get the best in class? We're all competing pretty much for the same capabilities and skill sets, which is also making it quite challenging.
Yeah.
Cool. So, when we also talk about cloud native enterprise, we're definitely talking about a mindset, right? It's not just having cloud and having the tech installed and going to one of the hyperscalers and going, right, I'm now on cloud, therefore, there is a fundamental mind shift that needs to happen across the organization, right? Mm-hmm. I think that's from CEO downwards. If you really, really want to go through that transformation journey, and it's not just the cloud piece, but cloud plays, it's a massive catalyst for change.
Yeah.
How How do you get an organization to fundamentally, a CEO's got to do it, right? So hopefully they're coming to events like this or the Gartner symposiums or whatever, and getting an understanding that the change needs to happen. How did that happen in BP? Did you see that in BP, or was it a bit of cart before the horse?
Yes, so we've definitely seen that in BP, and we continue to transform and continue to change and adjust and iteratively restructure our organization. We're actually literally just coming out of our restructure right now and starting to move more to a product-centric organization. So it's not necessarily the traditional setup as you would see with the CIO at the realm, and not, or it's that big IT space and world. Everyone needs to be educated on the technologies, the innovation, and being able to speak to those things, but also be able to think in the now, but also from the future perspective, and strategize and plan according to the technologies that are coming out, but also partnering with our business from a product ownership perspective, really understanding what problems that are trying to be solved, and really the connection and the communication has to be there, along with the capabilities and skill sets from software engineers to technical program project managers to your product managers who manages the relationship. All of those things have to be joined up and aligned, and therefore it takes you out of your traditional setup and hierarchical thought process. I think today I was on a panel where we were talking to some other executives from other companies, and talking specifically about the energy industry and where we are with cloud and the technologies. And there was a person that was sitting next to me that was on the business side, and his comment was, a lot of those things I really lean to, that's the IT, that's their responsibility, so I don't worry about that. And I said that, for me, that's shifting, and that's shifted in BP. It's not let me throw that over the fence. It's how do we work that together, and being able to have that knowledge set, and everyone's in a different space and place, and their digital acumen, I guess, or their technology acumen, and understanding what does it mean, what does cloud actually mean, and what does cloud native actually mean. As I said, in our journey, we're about 90% on the cloud, and everything is not going to be 100% on the cloud. We're going to get into this hybrid model that we're going to continue to have, but getting people to understand that just because we have moved to the cloud, what does that actually mean, and how are we set up? I can't just go and say, all of our workloads are IOs. I'll have a business person looking at me like, what the heck does that mean? Exactly. So, and why does that mean that my cost should be lower when you move to PaaS? Or what does that mean exactly? So it's about being able to connect with your product owners, being able to connect with your business, to be able to have that, the dialogue that gets them to understand, to bring everyone along for the journey. And that's important.
That's exactly it, right? I think for a successful transformation to take place, it can't be IT-led, it can't be business-led, it can't be product-led. It's got to be a collaboration of everybody being involved and everybody feeling like they're playing a part. And if they are, and they feel involved, then you'll get a successful transformation, rather than having it thrust upon you. I think that's probably the
Yes.
Okay, so let's take us to the second trend that we're seeing, and I think relatively obvious and straightforward one: sustainability, cloud-enabled climate action, decarbonization, whatever we want to call it. Right? This is looking at renewable energy. We all know that there's a climate challenge going on at the moment out there, and what is it that we can do as organizations and enterprises and hyperscalers to help address this? And there's a whole bunch of work been going on by the hyperscalers. AWS have made some announcements, or making some announcements at this reInvent. We are, Atos ourselves, we're working with an organization called EcoAct that help go into organizations and look at the carbon footprint. And without fail, they say that 2% of your energy costs can be completely written off by moving to the cloud. Right? And they're saying it's an absolute minimum. Get out of your data center, move into a cloud. It's a really easy 2% to save, especially if you're looking at big global enterprises. one of the very, very straightforward things that you can do. It's also a foot in the door, right? So we've got a lot of organizations where, let's just say the chief sustainability officer, CSO, probably wouldn't have been able to get a word in edgeways at any sort of board meeting 3 or 4 years ago. Right? Now, they're going to be the person that a lot of people listen to. Right? If the sustainability officer is going, right, we need to invest in X, Y, Z. Right? So you're doing it for 2 reasons. One is that it's good to see corporate social responsibility. It's good to look like you're doing something. And don't greenwash it, right? Actually do it. Secondly, you're going to make savings. There's a huge amount of cost to be taken out of businesses. And we'll get onto that a little bit later when we talk about FQ and financial intelligence. Keisha, let's just chat a little bit. Obviously, BP being in the energy sector, you've got a lot here that going on. But I know you guys are being very, focusing very much on renewable energy and stuff.
Right, and then of course our huge transition, coming to an integrated energy company, as well as we have our 20 aims that we're really focused on in that space, but specifically in relation to digital, one of the trends and things that we're looking at, as you've already mentioned, just cloud is a major contributor for Scope 3 emissions, so resulting in more of the companies leveraging the efficiencies of cloud to meet their sustainability goals. So sustainability, of course, as you know, amongst the top criteria for IT and buying decisions, specifically for us. So we've made significant strides over the last 12 months in measuring, controlling carbon emissions through the use of advocacy, guidance, and tools, things that we've built internally as well to measure our digital contribution to where we're trying to go in the transition. But in 2023, we're going to take this to the next level by embedding sustainability and circularity specifically into our product design and commercial decisions, along with the embedment of tools that help us along this journey. And we have already incorporated sustainability architecture guidance into our design ecosystem, and we'll have an increased focus on standardizing that approach. But really with the focus on the circularity piece, we'll continue on that journey when we talk about circularity, especially as we shut down our last and largest data centers in Europe. What we do with that, the hardware from all the networking cabling and all those other things, what is our contribution and how do we look at it from a circularity perspective? But then also continuing to think outside the box with our business partners or our partners that we use, such as AWS, our SIs that we partner with, and like-minded people that are also striving towards those goals. And it's not just about on the technology front. There's also a piece of sustainability that goes with the social mobility aspect of it and what we do within the community and how we reach out to the community. And that also goes with DE&I and all of those things that are near and dear for me and a lot of all of us. But those are parts of sustainability too that we're continuing to focus on. That's, again, not just about the digital aspect of it, but also the things that we should do and companies should do as well. So we are going to continue to push and focus in those spaces.
It's interesting you mentioned level 3. So there's 4 levels, just to give a bit of context, there's 4 levels that companies are sort of put into when it comes to sustainability and where you are with it. Level 1 is that you're on in a data center, traditional ways of working, you're not doing much is basically level 1. Level 2 is you've got some cloud hosting out there, you're using a bit of SaaS, but you do need to understand, you probably need to run through some form of assessment to see where else you can start getting more renewable energies in there. Level 3, you're using cloud extensively. But you've still got a way to go, right? And you're using that initial 2% as the sort of the lever to address the other 98% that I was mentioning there. And then obviously level 4 is you're at net zero or you're close to net zero. You've done large scale business transformation as part of the transformation that you're doing. One of the benefits you're going to get from this is the ability to start addressing your decarbonization and sustainability goals and net zero goals. So it isn't just a trend for trend's sake. It's something that's tangible and out there. And as I said, there are, especially if you're on AWS, there's a lot of options for transparency that you can actually start seeing the energy that you're using. And I think we're going to see more and more tooling coming around that. And Darren, I don't know if you've seen anything
I haven't seen
far.
No, I think there's some announcements with this week, right? I haven't seen anything so far. But just to touch on that, there's indirect tech on that level 3 and 4 where you can start using sustainable end user compute, leveraging the cloud. So these things aren't always great. They produce landfill as well. So it's how you can not cycle them every 3 years, not distributing tens of thousands of laptops because we have an end user compute service that it doesn't matter because the power's in the cloud. It's not at the fingertips of the user.
Brilliant. Okay, let's look at the third trend, the talent crisis. I mean, I'm not sure. This feels like it's going to be a trend that's ongoing. When does it become the norm? Not a trend anymore. So, I mean, really what we're saying here is that so many organizations are fighting for the same pool of talent, that we are all trying to attract the same people with the same skill set. There's a lot of competition, and basically what we're seeing is wages are going up through the roof. It's becoming unsustainable in terms of your value and your return on investment, and we're just getting less and less people to be able to pull from. So I think as an industry or as organizations in the space that we're all in, we shouldn't be aiming to fight for those limited talent. We should be looking to grow that pool.
Yeah.
So what is it that organizations can do to sort of help with this, self-heal this problem that we've got, that we're only all making a little bit worse by everyone moving jobs, and the churn is massive. Darren, you've seen it a bit.
Yeah, we have, and we need to become talent creators, right? It's really easy when there's a small pool and everyone fights over them, but actually what we need to do is create talent within our organisation, and there's normally loads of it hiding who are really, really interested, who have never really been given the opportunity to be able to do that. Just this week here, we've had people who haven't been in the industry less than 2 years who are competing in deep racer and finishing second. It's just absolutely crazy because the opportunity's not been there. It's not been given, and also I think the prerequisites for roles need to be redefined as well. I'm not sure about the US, and this is obviously my opinion, but in the UK we're quite bad at requiring must have a college degree, must have this, must have that for a job, when actually aptitude...
20 years of cloud.
Yeah, you need 20 years of cloud, and it's not been around long enough, right? So yeah, we've got quite lazy with our standards. Some sectors, especially around, we're quite lazy with the standards to employ someone, and that there's different skills out there that can be transferable to step into this sector, I believe anyway.
Yeah. So, and I think I touched on, the fact that we're running into the same issue and problem, or opportunity, shall I say. And I say it's an opportunity because of the reason why what you just said. And we have a large amount of capability within our company already. And now it's about dusting off and really looking at the job descriptions, but also looking within our talent pool that we currently have. And that's where the work's going to have to come in. How do we develop that talent and the capability that's there, that's in-house? I use this term that I think I adapted from probably somewhere, one of our PNC or HR folks, and that's where we have the skill and will that we can build off of. That's where we want to make sure that we are putting our time and initiatives towards building on that skill and will. Where there may not necessarily be that skill, but there's that will, but there's a little bit of something to build off of. It's about aligning them with the best place and space within the structure of where we're going with product centricity, around having product managers, having the software engineers, and having the discipline model that we can really, really focus on what do we need to do to bring learning and development within our organization to the talent that we currently have there. Because again, everyone is out there looking to compete for the same talent and the same skill sets. And on top of it, as you said, the inflation of salaries, which I love for me if I was out there looking. However, given the fact that we're looking to bring people in, it's hard. And then the things that we used to do, or we'd say we'll go offshore because we get the talent and it's economical. That's not the case anymore. So again, it's about what do you have internally and finding those gems, and that's what I call, and dusting those gems off and allowing them to shine, and how do we continue to build on that? And that's where it's really important for us to continue to partner with the likes of AWS and others such as yourself to be able to then help to build on that talent capability inside of the organization that's there. We have a lot of people that are extremely great at what they do. It's about how do we help to get them along the journey of evolution and building on those skill sets to then be able to provide the value that they absolutely can bring to the organization. And that's where we're starting to focus on a lot more. And then it's also about the partnerships that we have with our SIs that do have that skill as well. And how do we continue to partner with them to tackle the problem that we all are having? Yeah. So that's some of the things that we're trying to do. And specifically for me, being the head of our subdiscipline of technical program project management, it's building on those base core skill sets of program management, but then on the technology end, how do we then make sure that we're partnering again with the right people to build out that development plan for the people that have the skill and will to be able to do those things in each of those areas. So each of us that are discipline heads within BP, we're having to focus on that. And then really put the time in around the skills matrix. What are those necessary skills and capabilities that are needed? How do we then bring that in-house, and how do we build on that within each of our disciplines? And it's going to take some time, but as we do that, and in parallel of that, who are the partners that we can partner with that have that talent for us to be able to leverage that across the need and be able to fill that demand? So those are just things that we're doing.
I have a question. It's higher up. Do you think we have a persona issue as well with the sector? As in, everyone assumes cloud and technology is like
I need to be a programmer.
A Big Bang theory, right? It's the nerd world, and actually it's not that.
It isn't, exactly. And I can't thank you for bringing that up, because I have to say all the time, again, my profession, my discipline is program project management, and for me, I'm in technology. I've done all types of technology implementations, large, big, small, whatever, enterprise-wide. And so therefore knowing how to apply those things. But it's, again, getting people to understand that I can have 50,000 software engineers that could be the best at what they do. We've built the platform, we have the technology, we have those things. But if we don't have some of the softer skills or some of the things that are absolutely critical, such as governance, being able to understand and how to work within the squads that you have, being able to leverage and work with product managers and product owners to understand what the problem is, and then define that and bring that together, manage the dependencies across products and integration of those things, and to actually be able to deliver on things that are, and what's realistic to be able to deliver on those things. I don't need to be a software engineer to know how to do that and drive those things. No. However, those skill sets are absolutely needed. So everyone in the organization have a place and space for this. And I think the thing that scares people is when they do hear cloud or innovation, and now the trend is everyone's digital. What does that mean? Some people don't even know how to spell digital. So what does that actually mean? Right, and again, that doesn't necessarily mean that just because now you know how to do a pivot table on a spreadsheet that you automatically are digital, but it means quite a few things. It takes on quite a few definitions, but it's about knowing that everyone has to come along for this journey, and it's not necessarily the pure technologists that actually are doing head-down development that is absolutely critical. It's everyone across the board needing to understand where they fit in, and then what that definition is for each of those roles that you play within a squad or within that ecosystem to be able to deliver the value that's necessary. Those things are important.
I think it really is, and I do think every organization should be looking at how they can develop talent, grow that talent pool through either talent academies or we're just working with educational organisations, and I think Darren very rightly said it. Let's remove some of the barriers to entry.
Yeah,
yes.
You don't need necessarily to have a degree.
Yes.
To be good at this.
I call myself a cool nerd.
There you go. There you go. Okay, connected world. So this is the fourth trend that we're talking about. And again, I do think we're in a sort of an evolutionary world at the moment. I think there's mass revolutions going on. I think we're seeing, especially now, and we'll talk a little bit more about it when we talk about the financial crisis or financial quotient, is that there's a lot going on in the world, and at some point we've just got to maybe take a little bit of step back and go, right, what's going on? Connected worlds, this is where we're saying that there is a huge amount of connectivity coming along with things like 5G, and we were chatting this morning on one of the podcasts that, current 4G, you can connect 100,000 devices. 5G, it's 1 million. Right? It's 10 times the connectivity and within a range of a kilometre or something. So there's a huge amount of opportunity to use things like 5G. We've also got Starlink, Elon Musk satellites that are flying around the world. I'm sure people may have seen them, straight lines going out. We've got a competitor to that, OneWeb, is coming along. There's a massive amount of IoT devices that we're starting to see. Driverless cars are starting to come to fruition, and Darren, you were talking about driverless taxi services being licensed, and we're potentially going to start seeing the rollout of those. So there's a lot that can be done with connectivity, where I do think we are perhaps in a saying not a lot of evolution. I think there's a lot of innovation to be had in this space.
Yeah.
Keisha, are you guys doing much sort of IoT and connectivity outside of the pure central cloud?
Yes, and so from a delivery perspective, my team really focuses globally. So we have where we have our rigs, we have our platforms, things that are all of our setup that are in remote locations and needing the connectivity there. So edge computing is extremely important for us, and bringing the device or bringing things closer to, or bringing the activity and the stuff that's closer to where the business is being handled. And so having connected and unconnected devices, all of those things are absolutely relevant for us and an absolute must. AI and ML is extremely a must for us. So just around that, we've continued to drive our business efficiencies and digitalization. That means an exponential rise in the use of IoT over the next several years. And so our edge infrastructure provides low latency transport layer, along with the ability to centrally standardize and manage our IoT operations, which is extremely important. So reducing the dependency on the long distance network, as well as network routes, also helps to secure our remote devices from cyber attacks as well. So cyber security is extremely, of course, it's also not a trend, it's an absolute must. And making sure that we're doing that. So from an IoT perspective, that is absolutely critical. Looking at just our growth and just the multi and the hybrid cloud even though that's an enterprise perspective, but being able to be able to know that everything's not going to be able to go on public cloud. We have private cloud, so just the combination of those two. And when we're looking at we had a solution that we're trying to build in Turkey. We can't take that to public cloud, and so being able to leverage cloud native technology, whether that be from a private cloud perspective and what the offerings are around Outposts and getting use cases and performance requirements that are there, data sovereignty requirements that we have, all of those things are absolutely necessary for us to continue to look at and drive. And then on the AI and ML perspective, just autonomous automation and all of those things that are necessary for us to do that around our refineries and digital twins and continuing to build on that capability. All of those things are extremely relevant to us, and we'll continue to build on that, working again with partnerships with the likes of you guys and of course AWS. So those are things that we're continuing to work within and the teams are continuing to focus on.
Brilliant. There's quite an interesting use case of a connected city, I think I'll call it, rather than a connected world. I don't know if anyone's seen a project called The Line that's currently taking place in Saudi Arabia. They're essentially building a new city, and the city is incredible, the concept, and they have broken ground, so it is happening at the moment. 170 kilometers long and 200 kilometers wide. 200 meters wide.
Oh, okay.
Wow, that's huge. 200 meters wide, and it's going to have no cars, no emissions, fully renewable. Um,
Oh, wow.
It has 3 layers underground. So I think one's like a plant layer, and then you've got a sort of a data layer, and then you've got a transport layer. And they're saying that within the city, you'll be within 5 minutes walk of anywhere you want to get to. It's incredible. The concept of this is just mind-blowing. And it's happening. And obviously, a lot of technology is going to be going into that, and certainly a lot of connectivity as well.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to the evolution of this. Are there any CIOs here? Probably not. There is one. Excellent. Let's find out if you've still got a job.
First thing I saw there is CIO dead. No, that's...
So I mean, Gene Kim, who wrote the Phoenix project and the Unicorn project, he famously once said CIO stands for career is over. Not that, once you're CIO, that's it. But he's saying there's nowhere to go, right? You're at the top of your game. Unlikely you're going to become a CEO. Unlikely to become a CFO. Once you hit CIO, you're CIO, and you probably are doing lateral moves. What we're sort of saying is that with cloud coming on and cloud adoption, that actually the tech piece of being a CIO is probably less important than it has been. And what you really need to be looking at is the cultural, so the people bit, and the process piece. Right? Going through a digital transformation is not easy. And I think it's absolutely key that the tech will basically fall in place. Right? Just bits and pieces that you've got to work around it. The hardest piece of this is empathy with your team. People are going to be worried they're going to lose their jobs. Finance are going to worry that you're going from a CapEx model to an OpEx model. The trading team are like, how are we going to get all these people trained on this? Governance, security, there's a whole bunch of operating model changes. There's a whole bunch of things that as a CIO, you're going to be responsible for. But you're also a translator, because you've got to translate IT speak into board speak, boardroom speak. And don't expect the board to ever understand IT. That is just not going to happen. So you've got to be that middle layer. And we've had a number of conversations with CIOs around this and have absolutely seen that the role is changing. Keisha, you mentioned that at BP you don't have that model, which is interesting. Right? And I've seen a couple of organizations have even taken the CIO role out and replaced it with something different, Chief Digital Officer.
It's a title change, but
it's a title
again,
change, right?
Yes.
But it almost says, look, we're making a change, we're doing something a bit different. I mean, I think interesting that you've taken that out and gone, right, we're going more product-centric, you said?
Yep.
Yeah.
So we're just moving to a product-centric organization, which, again, I think has been what we've been moving to for years. But again, it's just called something different. Before it was customer centricity. Now it's product-centric organization. At the end of the day, it's about making sure that you have people within the digital space that's able to, like you said, do the translation and be able to make this shift. I can't very well go into the boardroom or go into conversations with our product owners, our business that literally is talking about the same thing that I would actually speak if I'm in a room full of software engineers. They're not going to understand that. How do you translate that and understand how to meet people where they are and bring those things together so that people understand that this is how technology helps to meet these objectives that you're trying to meet from the strategy perspective? One of the things that I constantly say, and the things that we talk about with AWS is first things first, understand our business strategy and where we're trying to go. So that way, every single time that we're talking about new technology, innovation, things that you're coming out with, you can align that to where our business strategy is where we're trying to go from a business perspective, and the actual outcomes that we're trying to get to, and the products that we're actually focused on that will get us to those outcomes. What does that mean, and how does that align to the innovation and the things that you're now bringing out? What are the big problems that we're trying to solve to be able to help our product owners, our business, be able to utilize the products to be able to get to the end outcome of where they need to. And so now it's about those conversations holistically, and everyone needs to understand those conversations. So even on your business side where you have your CEOs, to a certain extent, they also need to understand technology to a certain level, right? And what does that mean? And the digital aspect of that. I can definitely tell you our CIO definitely understands cloud, and he knows exactly what that means. And how do we then continue to leverage those relationships? And I think that's important. So on the end of whether you're calling yourself a CIO, whether you're calling yourself a VP of digital foundations or whatever the case may be, or the product owner or the product manager or in the product space or principal product, whatever it is, there has to be that level of understanding of what, when you go to your product owner or your business that says, this is the so what, this is the problem that I'm trying to solve. Then you then have to then translate that from a technology perspective. What does that mean? And then communicate that back. This is why and how we're going to solve this. This is what we're going to put towards this use case to get you here. And to be able to understand and translate that and have that intelligent conversation, whether your title is a CIO or whether your title is a product, the senior product, whatever, you need to be able to marry those things and marry that conversation together and meet people where they are and take everyone along that journey.
It's a culture and enablement leader, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I like that title.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to take that.
Yeah, change it. Yeah, LinkedIn update. Servantly, unblocking teams so they can deliver based on the business. You're a translator of technology to the business.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course the role isn't there, right? I think it's around. It's changing a little bit. I think to go through a successful digital transformation, part of your role is being that sort of interpreter. But again, it's back to what we were saying. You need to collaborate, right? If you're collaborating with the business and you're showing the value, it's where you get to the successful transformations. Okay, and then the last one. What about the FQ? So what are we talking about with FQ? FQ, we are talking about financial quotient. So if you think about IQ and EQ, IQ, intelligence quotient, you've got a number, I'm 110, I'm in Mensa, or whatever it may be. It's a way of measuring a level of intelligence. EQ, the same, a way of measuring empathy. We last year spoke about DQ, which was digital quotient, right? So we were saying, can you measure an enterprise as to how enabled they are to be able to go through a journey, right? What is their digital intelligence as an organization, right? It's not individuals, it's looking at it as an organization. We're saying to go through a successful transformation, you need to have a level of DQ across the business. You can't just have it siloed in a certain, in the IT team and then nobody else is understanding. You've got to get that messaging across. This year we're sort of saying, okay, we think that next year in terms of evolution and technical sort of innovation, I don't think there's going to be as much as there has been. Right? We had the pandemic that forced us all to move on to cloud. We did it very quickly without a huge amount of planning. There was a lot of lift and shifting went on, and we're still seeing that today, a lot of lift and shifting. It's always recommended lift and shift and then go and modernize. So we've got that sort of history. We've got tech debt that definitely came on. We've got cloud tech debt already, right, that came from those quick migrations. We have high inflation going on at the moment. We have high interest rates. Money isn't cheap anymore. I really think that there's going to be, next year is going to be a level of strategic financial wariness, right? I think organizations are going to go, right, we actually need to do FinOps properly.
Yeah.
We need to look at the tech that we've already built. Let's not make this any worse than it already is. Let's just slow down to go a bit faster and give ourselves a bit of time. So what we're saying is that within an organization, your FQ, your financial quotient, again, it can't be individual. It can't be the accounts team and the CFO going, look after the money. Across your organization, and your architects, your developers, they don't need to be accountants, but they need to have an understanding of, if I put this line of code in, is it going to cost the business? It might only be 10 cents an hour, but if I create 100 of them and I've got them running hourly, it slowly builds up. So, Keisha, in terms of what you're doing, are you seeing this as well? I mean, obviously BP are doing quite well at the moment.
Yes.
In terms of you still want to be efficient, cost efficient. Right?
Yes, because initially it was, again, with our cloud first initiative, we were thinking that, well, part of the business case, I never committed that it was going to be cheaper once we moved to the cloud, or we never said that. There was other benefits to be gained from that that are priceless, if you will. However, as far as just operational cost and what does that look like as, again, the presence of cloud continues to grow, we continue to move things onto cloud. It's not even just the fact that we had a big enterprise-wide cloud initiative to move. There was other teams that with our Cloud First initiative, that meant that whenever you're starting to build on things or build more internal capabilities or whatever else, you are specifically building that on the cloud. And so our cloud growth grew crazy. So even though I said 90% on the cloud for the things that my team has moved as a part of the enterprise solutions, there was all the other development activities that were happening within the DevOps groups and other areas that were also building on the cloud. And then you start to step back and you start to look at your operational costs, going from the CapEx to OpEx, and knowing that where we're trying to go within the transition, and we're going to have to be as optimal as possible in our cost. We're going to have to be as lean as we possibly can, and all the inefficiencies and mismanagement of some of the things that we were doing from an infrastructure perspective, like building all the IaaS workloads, just having to be more watchful on what we're doing. So while we run a tight ship with the management of our cloud platforms, there's continuous demand on these services as a result of which we may sometimes not identify potential high-cost solutions that may have been implemented earlier on. In addition to this, there's cloud waste, over-provisioning of cloud, the idle cloud space developed over time, and the needs effective management to ensure optimal utilization. So we have a well-established cost optimization function now that helps us to achieve this and to maintain the focus for years to come. But it's an ongoing active thing that we're having to do and apply those things because, again, things could have and still can get out of control, but there's just so many things that now we're working with to continue to optimize those costs because that's going to absolutely be key. And things that we know now that we didn't know before, that we're starting to really, really focus and leverage and put into the to-be design states so that we're not repeating some of the things of the past and continuing to contribute to that high cost. So those are things that we're doing at BP, and we're going to continue to have to do that because, again...
It doesn't end, right?
It does not end.
It's got to just keep looking at where we can save
Yes.
money.
As how I see FQ is you have FinOps, you have to get really serious about that at the base, and you have cloud economics above that, which is more a little bit more strategic. Then you have financial strategic economics, like your EDPs and so you have your reserved instances a bit higher up other than FinOps, and then your FQ goes up and down that stack accordingly. Yeah.
But I also say it's the same thing about educating people as well, and it's not just the technologists that you're educating, it's everyone, and understanding that now we've put the power in our hands to be able to control and optimize our cost. It's no longer a fixed cost that's just done to you.
No.
It's now an active management.
You have that transparency as well.
Yes.
You have the ability to actually see what a workload is costing you, which you probably didn't have before. Always a lot of guessing as well.
Yeah.
So. Brilliant. Okay, well, I think that the message there is that we are going through a fairly challenging year next year. Take the time to just spend a little bit of time looking at your existing structure, right? Is there tech debt in there? Are there apps that don't really need to be, or that shouldn't have been lifted and shifted? Is there things that can be modernized? Are there things that can be retired? Right? It may even be apps that, are they really being used? And I know that we've definitely had a number of customers. You just go in and redo that sort of 6R type assessment piece on stuff that you've already got in the cloud. It'd be amazing what you see after having been there for a year or so. Okay, thanks for the trends. That was the trends. But the bit I know you've been desperately waiting to hear the answer for was the cliffhanger question that I asked at the beginning. I think the audience, we had about 50-50 in the audience out there. So I asked the question, the first reInvent back in 2012, so 11 years ago. The conference pass today costs $1,799. But back at the very first one, was it 1,099 or 599? Darren, you went for the 599.
I did.
Most of the audience, well, I'd say it's about 50-50. Keisha, you went for the 1,099. Darren, I'm very happy to say that once again you have lost. That's now four out of four cloudy cliffhangers that you've got wrong. Congratulations to all those who got the correct answer. It was 1,099. And actually trying to find that information was quite challenging. I eventually found it on a blog that Jeff Barr, those who may know Jeff, he is like Amazon's chief evangelist. I saw it on a blog that he wrote back in May 2012, where he was talking about the virtues of coming to reInvent, and it's only $1,099. So that's what I found out. In fact, Jeff's coming on the podcast in a couple of weeks, so looking forward to that.
4-0.
Yeah. Thank you all again. Very much appreciate you spending the time. I mean, I know it's late, 5:45, so thank you ever so much. Appreciate you coming on.